Hi everybody, so today I want to talk about Boris Johnson's withdrawal agreement. It's basically Theresa May's withdrawal agreement but without the backstop. Now when I say it's without the backstop, what it's basically done is it's made the backstop a permanent feature of the agreement. And it's actually gone back to what the European Union offered Theresa May initially. And that is that Northern Ireland is effectively kept within the European Union, or certainly within the sort of areas of the single market and the customs union, and it creates a border down the Irish Sea. So the DUP have been thrown under the bus on this because it is actually separating Northern Ireland from the rest of the United Kingdom. Now, whether you're a Brexiter or whether you're a Remainer, this is something that should really actually worry you, because what it's doing is it's setting a precedent with regards to the constituent nations in the country starting to become separated. Now, legitimately, the way that I can see things going, legitimately, Scotland now has every right to say, well, if it's good enough for Northern Ireland, then why is it not good enough for Scotland? Scotland didn't vote to leave the European Union. Northern Ireland didn't vote to leave the European Union. Scotland has a land border, but their land border would be a lot easier to implement a hard border between England and Scotland because of there's no equivalent to the Good Friday Agreement, and so really I really feel sorry for the Scottish people, and I think what's going to happen is that this is just going to start really eating away at the union of the United Kingdom, assuming that the deal is passed. If I was Scottish, I would be absolutely outraged by this. It's really not fair that the Scottish are very pro-European. Certainly the majority of the Scottish are very pro-European. And they really do have a legitimate, when they say, well, why isn't this good enough for us? How do you answer that? And so I can see that this is really a boon to the independence campaign within Scotland, and so I think if this withdrawal agreement does get passed, then I think it's going to cause real issues with the United Kingdom, and I can see it disintegrating. Now, if this is what you wanted from Brexit, then fine, you've got everything that you hoped for, but I'm assuming most Brexiters aren't little Englanders. I'm assuming most Brexiters are kind of proud of being British and proud of being part of the United Kingdom in our 300 or so year history as being a United Kingdom. And so I think this should really worry you, because there's no other way to describe it really, and I don't think you can get around this. Even if the withdrawal agreement is passed, what you're doing is you're setting in train events which could potentially, and I can see in the not too distant future, see the United Kingdom actually breaking up. Now, people said this was all Project Fear, all of this is Project Fear, blah blah blah. But how many times have things that have been said to be Project Fear have now proven to be Project Fact? And it doesn't take a genius to work these things out, to work out how events can carry on. So from that perspective, if you're a Brexiter, if you're a Remainer, and if you believe in the United Kingdom, then you should be very, very worried about this. And I think it's actually a betrayal not only of the DUP, but it's actually a betrayal in a way of the Scottish people as well, who again voted to remain. Lots of other things in the withdrawal agreement. I mean, it's essentially Theresa May's deal. There are things that have been tweaked in there. It's not a brand new deal. I mean, there's bits and pieces in there that are different. But Boris Johnson is obviously now on the campaign trail to try and push this over the line. And weirdly, he's got the ERG and other sort of extreme Brexiters seem to be towing the party line. Certainly conservative ones seem to be towing the party line, because I think they probably know that they've overplayed their hand, and I think they probably know that this is the best they can get from Brexit. It's a definition of Brexit. Finally, Brexit has been defined, and this is what Brexit is. I think it's awful, and I don't understand how anyone could think it's anything but awful. But there you go. You can have the hard sell from the Conservative Party to say this is absolutely everything we want, and it's going to bring the whole country together if our politicians vote for it. Now, of course, it's not going to bring the whole country together again, because this is the withdrawal agreement is merely the start of the process. It's taken us 3 years, 4 months to get to this point, and it's really just the start of the process. But in addition to that, and what compounds it for people like myself is that it's not only, as I see it, the potential of the dissolution of the United Kingdom, but it's also the fact that my rights are being stripped away from me. And I have people that are celebrating this fact like it's some kind of victory. Well, of course, it's no victory. No one's a winner in this, but there's millions of us that are furious about the fact that we are having rights stripped away from us against our will. And so we're not going to stop campaigning. I mean, it's an absolute outrage. I mean, Brexit in itself, to me, is an absolute outrage. How dare politicians put up a vote to strip rights away from half the population by the other half of the voting population? This is why we're in such a mess. This is why we're at such loggerheads. Because if you're a Brexiter, you cannot strip rights away from me without me feeling completely pissed off. And if you're promised a democratic vote and I say your democratic vote can't stand, then you're going to be pissed off. And this is the point. This is where the kind of the insurmountable mountain that you can't get over. Because there are such fundamental and important things to both of us, if you're a Brexiter or a Remainer, that how on earth do you ever come back together on this? Now, I don't wish any ill will to Brexiters. I'm just furious about the process and about the fact that that we've all been put in this situation. So what's going to happen? Well, Saturday is the big day. Saturday is the day when MPs are going to vote. They call it Super Saturday. Not very super. It's going to be really frantic and really quite stressful for everyone involved, I think. But as others have said, there's really three things that can happen on Saturday. Boris Johnson's withdrawal agreement could get passed. And if that happens, then the 31st of October, we reach that deadline and then we start entering into the transition period. Boris Johnson's withdrawal agreement could be voted down, in which case the Benn Act kicks in and then he will have to go to the European Union and request an extension from the European Union. Now, I know there was a big flurry of activity today on social media with regards to some comments that Jean-Claude Juncker said. He said that we wouldn't be going into an extension. There wouldn't be an extension on offer. But of course, he's merely the Commission President. It's nothing to do with him. He has no jurisdiction over that. He can't decide that. It's not in his remit. It's the Council, the European Council, that decides that. It's the heads of government of all the nation states. And he actually did clarify that later in the day. And it's pretty certain that the European Union would grant us a further extension if Boris Johnson's withdrawal agreement was rejected. And the third option is that there could be an amendment could pass where Boris Johnson's withdrawal agreement is passed through Parliament on the basis that it goes back to the people in a confirmatory referendum. Now, I think that is the best route. You have a definition of Brexit now, which is Boris Johnson's withdrawal agreement. So let's put it back to the British people and let them decide whether this is what they want still, now that they know what Brexit is, or whether they, after 3.5 years, they now think with the information they've got, maybe this isn't such a good idea, so let's stay as we were. That, to me, is the most democratic path out of this. Numbers in the House of Commons are going to be really tight, and it could change between now and Saturday. The DUP at the moment are saying they will not vote for the deal. They won't. It's not that they're going to abstain; they're actually actively going to vote against the deal, which means that Boris Johnson really will need to convince quite a few Labour MPs to support his deal. Now, I can't believe that he will get the numbers from Labour, because if Labour Party MPs get this deal across the line, then they are basically bailing Boris Johnson out. They're basically bailing a Conservative government out. And I think to their voters that would be more of a betrayal than anything else they could possibly do. I actually think that, I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I think Labour are actually going to whip their MPs on the basis that if they don't vote against Boris Johnson's withdrawal agreement, then they will not stand as Labour MPs at the next general election. So I think it's going to be very hard for Boris Johnson to get the numbers. I could be wrong. It's all very fluid. I don't know, but the way it stands at the moment, I can't see how he gets it passed. I don't think there'll be enough people that will vote for an amendment to attach a referendum to the deal yet, though that is clearly the best route now. But I don't think the numbers are there yet in Parliament. I think what's the most likely outcome is that Boris Johnson is forced to request an extension from the European Union. Could be for, say, 3 months, for example, and then we enter into general election territory. I could be wrong on this. It may be that the MPs finally come to their senses and we do get a majority of MPs that will support an amendment and finally decide to put this back to the British people, because this is something that should have always been on the cards. Other countries do it. There is nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with checking that it's still what the British people want, especially when the vote was so close, and especially when this is of such high stakes, when this is literally talking about people's rights and identity being stripped away from them. At least half of almost half of the electorate, and probably over half of the electorate now, could well have their rights and identity stripped away from them on the basis of a single referendum 3.5 years ago, and without the democratic mandate of a confirmatory referendum to ensure that this is actually what the British people want. Now, I know Brexiters are going to be up in arms watching this and be going, "Oh, we've already had a vote." But it's if you're looking at this logically, if you're looking at this fairly, then and democratically, then you cannot deny the fact that a confirmatory referendum is the safest way of ensuring that we're doing what the will of the people is. And anyone that thinks that more democracy is undemocratic is frankly, they're on a losing argument there, because that just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I really, really hope our MPs have the courage and the foresight to vote for an amendment that will to attach to the passing of the withdrawal agreement. That means that it has to be ratified by the British public in a referendum with the withdrawal agreement versus Remain. The withdrawal agreement is Brexit. Brexit now has a definition. That word has a definition, and that is the withdrawal agreement. I hate it. You may not. You might love it. You might love the fact that Northern Ireland is going to be separated from the rest of the United Kingdom. But maybe you hate it as well. I don't know. But so you have a definition of Brexit, and we know what Remain is, because Remain is the status quo. I mean, you can try and argue that, we don't know what the European Union is going to evolve into. Well, of course that's true. But the fact is, we know that remaining at the moment is what it is, and we also know that we have a veto and we have all the other things, and we literally have the best deal of any European Union member state. So this is what I hope is going to happen on Saturday. I'll be going on the march in London along with hundreds of thousands of other people. Amazing coincidence that it's happening on the same day. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere. It's going to be tense for everyone. I guess it's going to be tense if you're a Brexiter. It's going to be tense for Remainers. And this is the way I see things, and this is the way that I hope it's going to pan out. But we will see. Only a few days to go. Cheers.